Hey everybody, thanks for joining us again. Fantasy draft season is actually getting kind of close, and I'm here to terrify you. We're going to talk about scary draft picks. Now, what do I mean by guys who are potentially scary if you draft them? I don't necessarily mean busts. We'll draft anybody if the price is right. And in the case of the 5 players that I'm about to mention, I'm not calling them don't draft. I'm just saying that if you do draft them, you're going to potentially need an antacid tablet or two. Now, we're brought to you by Lisa today. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Lisa mattresses just a little bit later in this particular programming. So we got 5 players I'm going to count down. None of them are going to be injury-related scariness. Obviously, the patron saint of players who terrify us in 2025 is Christian McCaffrey. We're having to spend such a high pick to get him. We're terrified after what happened last year. Obviously, you don't need a video to tell you that it's scary to draft injured players. Instead, I'm going to talk about players who are scary for other reasons, and I'm going to start counting down my number 5, Justin Fields of the New York Jets. Fields isn't going to cost an arm and a leg in fantasy drafts this year. It's unlikely he's a top 100 player, which means he'll be on the fringes of being a fantasy starter. But you are going to hear some people call Fields a sleeper, and of course we understand why. It's all about the cheat code. He has an 1,100 rushing yards season just a few years ago. You know how that goes. I can't believe how many times I see people write, all that matters for a fantasy quarterback is that he can run, which, you know, there's no accounting for what people are going to write, but that is also really super stupid. For as long as he's in there and upright, yeah, Fields gives you week winning upside because of his legs, but Bears fans can tell you all about the downside, which means he's not guaranteed to keep the job if he's not good throwing the ball. Those weeks where he rushes 40 yards and does 11 for 22 for 122 pass yards and 2 interceptions, are those any fun? Fields has a strong enough arm, and there are tantalizing throws on film. But for every one of those, you'll also get elite blindness on an interception or simply an unwillingness to let the ball go into a tight window. If you wait in a fantasy draft at quarterback with the idea of making the sneaky late round pick on Fields, hey, I'm here to tell you it can work, but it's terrifying. At number 4, I'll say DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf is pretty scary. Now we are getting into the realm of a top 50 pick, meaning half-calf decaf is a fantasy starter, and there's a chance I'll do it. I think the 5th round is probably the right place to take Metcalf, but is it potentially going to give me the stress farts? Yup. Metcalf has, of course, moved from the Seahawks to the Steelers at age 28. I think he turns 28 in December. He should be rounding directly into his prime. Come on, you can't argue he's not one of the biggest and fastest wide receivers currently plying his trade in the NFL, but he's also got more red flags than a semaphore convention. First of all, there's a reason Seattle, the only team he's ever known until now, did not want to pay him his next big contract. They saw him gradually get marginalized on a team that chose Jackson Smith-Njigba over him. Metcalf still made downfield plays last year, but after week 10 of last season, he never caught more than 4 passes in a game. When you're this big and this fast and multiple double-digit touchdown seasons, why does your team stop throwing you the ball? And then there's the landing spot. The Steelers currently don't have any other big league wideouts on their roster, having dunked George Pickens in exchange for Metcalf. Plus, their quarterback is soon-to-be 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers, who spent last year with the Jets not holding on to the ball long enough to take a hit and make a play down the field. Ask Garrett Wilson what it was like to be Rodgers' main man for much of 2024. And yet, this isn't a bust list. I understand the temptation of Metcalf in the 5th round. He should get a lot more looks every week this year than he did toward the end of last year. He's still a size-speed monstrosity, and as much a weird and reduced photocopy of his former self Rodgers is, he's far from the worst quarterback who could be throwing Metcalf footballs this year. In fact, I'm close to positive he's better than the guy who was throwing balls in Pittsburgh last year. So I understand how it can work for Metcalf, but it's stressful. Okay, let me take a moment to thank our sponsor for these August videos. That would be Lisa, the makers of the mattress that I sleep on and have for close to a decade. I love the Lisa mattress. I am a bi-coastal Lisa sleeper, and I absolutely love their mattresses. Also, I am not you, and you have your own mattress needs and desires, so kinda who cares what I think. What matters is that Lisa has several different mattress feels depending on your preference. And even more importantly, they'll give you 100 nights to sleep on your new bed and make sure you love it. And if you sleep on it for more than 3 months and decide it's not perfect for you, they'll refund you. They'll come pick it up, no questions asked. Lisa is a charitable company. Over the years, they've donated thousands of beds to homeless shelters. They help take care of the environment. And I think the beds are great. Also, it's their early access Labor Day sale, 25% off mattresses site-wide at lisa.com. And if you check out with the code Harris, they'll take another $50 off the top. So that's lisa.com for 25% off mattresses site-wide, and enter that code Harris for another $50 taken off the top. We do appreciate Lisa. Let's continue with the countdown. Number 3, also of the Jets, running back Breece Hall. In most drafts, I think Hall is probably a 3rd-round pick. And frankly, I might be ranking him even a little bit higher than that. So I will draft Breece Hall, 100% I will. But I will probably need some kind of antacid tablet while I do it. I think he's by far the best running back on the Jets roster, and that's even including the quarterback, who's part running back. I think the Jets have just been paying lip service to the idea that, oh no, Braylon Allen, he's going to play so much. And I think the presence of Justin Fields is probably a net positive for Hall. You'll hear people say, well, of course, with Fields stealing so many rushing yards and maybe stealing some rushing touchdowns, Breece Hall is doomed. But all I know about that is that Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry seem to coexist pretty well in 2024. And I also didn't exactly see Saquon Barkley's fantasy value submarined because Jalen Hurts gets a constant stream of 1-yard touchdowns. I think the way it usually works is that the special running back usually gets a lot of the work and performs well. And I still think Hall showed enough on tape in a truly dire Jets offense last year to qualify as a special running back. When the Jets eventually, sometimes, rarely got him into open space, the speed and power combo was still there, even post-knee injury. I think he's a very, very good player. All right, so why is Breece Hall so scary then? Well, it's obviously been brutal out there in New York for his entire 3-year career. He's never rushed for 1,000 yards. His rookie contract ends after 2025, and the Jets have not shown any inclination yet to extend him. And the new coach, Aaron Glenn, spent the spring talking about a 3-headed backfield, and there were rumors the Jets were trying to trade Hall during April's draft, and there are still rumors they could trade him before this season even starts. If they do, okay, fine. Hopefully he lands on a better team. And if they don't, well, I don't expect any running back to have a backfield entirely to himself. That's not the NFL anymore. The situation is undeniably scary, but I'm willing to bet on talent. I'll put another running back at number 2 on the list. I love him. I think his tape is incredibly fun. It's the sprinter soldier, Bucky Irving. If the price was just a little more reasonable on Irving, I wouldn't have much nervousness about him at all because he was terrific as a rookie. He's tiny-boned, no question, so it seems unlikely he'll ever start running over linebackers. He's really fast, he's incredibly quick, but he also doesn't try to bounce everything to the outside. If a play is designed to go up the gut, Irving will mostly try and run it up the gut. That means he can take some pretty big hits, but he also avoids the annoying big negative plays that coaches tend to frown on and bench you for. Within that context, Irving's change of direction is nothing shy of elite, and he's a breakaway threat too. And if I could just leave the story right there, we'd all be absolutely thrilled to have Bucky Irving in maybe like the 3rd round or something, if we could leave it at that. But for some reason, fantasy football's influencers had to push Irving a lot higher. He's a pure 2nd-round pick, and he's usually early in round 2. Now, I'm not saying it's a ridiculous price to pay, because I can see from Irving's film what can go right, but this price seems to contend that nothing can go wrong. Bucky Irving has 3 career starts, Rachaad White exited Tampa's first preseason game with a tweaked groin, but for now, he's still hanging around. And until further notice, I'm going to assume he's okay for week 1. I've been telling you for 2 years now, I don't think Rachaad White is a very good running back, but he's obviously an excellent open field receiver. He's number 4 among all running backs in catches since 2022. Yes, Irving took over the main role in December last year and dominated work down the stretch. But he is indisputably tiny-boned, and it's super unclear, could he stand up to that kind of dominant split he had in December last year over the long haul? The market is really taking a 3-game sample size and extrapolating so hard that it's turned this tiny December hero into a top 20 or even top 15 overall pick. Again, it can pay off. I'm not calling Irving a bust, but this feels like a really scary bet to make. And at number 1, I think clearly the scariest non-injury related player to draft in 2025 is the number 1 receiver from just a year ago, Tyreek Hill. He'll also cost a 3rd-round pick, something that seemed unthinkable at this time last year. Hill was the overall number 2 pick in 2024, coming off an insane 1,800-yard season with 13 touchdowns. You know how there are people out there right now telling you, oh, you got to draft Jamar Chase number 1 overall this year. You got to do it. He's so much safer than a running back. Oh, really? Because that's exactly what people were saying about Tyreek Hill last year. Same ridiculous production, same belief that nothing could go wrong. And then things went wrong. Hill didn't miss any games last season and somehow finished wide receiver 23, didn't even get to 1,000 yards receiving. His personality is erratic, to be very kind. It's his age 31 season, and a year after the Dolphins looked like one of the NFL's true, unimpeachable offensive wagons, now we have big questions. Can Tua Tagovailoa remain unconcussed? Will the offense ever again resemble the all-field threat from 2023? Or will everything be 1-yard passes to try and keep the quarterback upright? Obviously, yes. There's a lot of things that could go wrong. What could go right is you are getting last year's number 2 overall player in the 3rd round. He had back-to-back seasons of at least 1,700 receiving yards, and he still obviously was very, very fast last year. Hill is a 5-time first-team All-Pro wideout, and he's getting drafted after Ladd McConkey. Nice little story, Ladd McConkey. He's a second-year player who, in his first year, didn't touch 1,200 receiving yards. Obviously, this is pure risk for pure reward. If you want to avoid the fantasy football equivalent of acid reflux, stay away. But if you don't mind risking it for the biscuit, Tyreek Hill obviously could pay off huge. So there you have it, my 5 riskiest players, scariest to draft of 2025 that don't involve injuries, because obviously I know, you know, we all know, injury guys are also pretty scary. What do you think? Do you have other nominees for this list that I didn't mention? Are you less put off by anybody I mentioned here? Please let me know down in the comments. I want to thank Lisa for sponsoring. I want to thank Dave Pyper for being the best producer imaginable. I want to remind you that if you like the Harris Football Player Profile Almanac in past years, well, by golly, you can get it right now at harrisfootball.com. I'm so glad you watched. Thank you so much. We're really getting close to these fantasy drafts. I'll be there with you every step of the way. We'll see you next time. Thanks so much for watching. Please, please, please smash that like button. Write a comment. Tell us who else you'd like to see us review film on. And of course, best of all, please subscribe to our channel and then click that little bell above the subscribe button and you'll be notified whenever we post a new video.